Let's check in with Megan Borowski. She's interim director and chief meteorologist for the Florida Public Radio and Emergency Network. Good morning, Megan. Thanks for being here.
Good- No problem at all. Good morning.
So, what do we know now that the storm has come ashore? What happens now?
Well, we're going to continue to closely monitor it for the First Coast area. We will continue to see heavy rainfall occurring over the next several hours, even into the afternoon and evening hours, as these bands wrap from west to east across our area. 3 inch an hour rainfall rates aren't out of the realm of possibility, especially for the I-10 corridor immediately west of Jacksonville. Also, tropical storm force wind gusts will likely continue throughout the day. We've already gotten reports of that. And that should continue. And so flooding is going to be a big concern. And with those tropical storm force wind gusts, we'll likely see down trees and power lines, probably power outages starting to mount as we get into the late morning and early afternoon hours.
And is that when you're expecting to see the heaviest impacts in the late like, morning and early afternoon?
Yeah, as the core of this system continues to move inland, we'll start to see those strong impacts move out of the Live Oak and Lake City area and closer to the Jacksonville metro area. But even right now, I mean, we do have some heavy bands on the periphery of your area moving into Lottie and Middleburg, even into Green Cove Springs. We have some stronger bands. So that's going to continue as the day wears on. And really, the risk isn't going to diminish until this evening into the overnight. We will have those outer bands, a threat of those as well. I also want to note that we do have a risk for tornadoes. Right now, we're seeing most of our tornado warnings along the I-4 corridor. However, that risk is going to continue as far north as I-10, Alachua County, farther west of your area, but Duval, Nassau counties as well, as we get into the afternoon hours and those bands quickly race from southwest to northeast.
And how about our listeners in Southeast Georgia? We, of course, have a signal that goes up there. What are they looking at?
Right. So we already have heavy rain, even as far north as Hinesville right now. Very strong rain rates being reflected just to the southwest of Savannah. So the conditions are going to deteriorate and continue to worsen over South Georgia as well. Good news is we are expecting Debby to weaken into a tropical storm, but still with those tropical storm force gusts and those heavy, unrelenting rain rates, we'll likely see power outages as an issue. And then also along the coastline, storm surge as we get winds from the southeast onto the coast of Georgia. Flooding will become a concern. Storm surge flooding plus freshwater flooding.
I was going to ask you about that. I know that on the West
hmm
Coast, this was very much a coastal flooding event. But here,
hmm
with the heavy rainfall, are we expecting to see primarily a coastal flooding event or more of like a riverine tributary flooding event?
So it's all contingent on where you are relative to the center of the storm because winds rotate counterclockwise around the center of low pressure. So Savannah, Brunswick, you're all going to have winds from the southeast to the northwest as Debbie's core remains to the west of your region. Not as concerned for Jacksonville and the First Coast because winds should not be directly onshore. So thankfully, we don't have too much of the storm surge issue there. So freshwater flooding, the bigger concern for Nassau and Duval counties. But farther north for South Georgia, we do have a component of the winds onshore. So storm surge flooding plus the rainfall flooding. The onshore winds will prevent rivers from draining into the water. So that's going to make flooding, the risk for catastrophic flash flooding, it's going to mount as the day wears on. We're looking at that threat as well for the low country of South Carolina.
And then I know you've got a lot going on today, Megan, and we appreciate your
hmm
time. Just finally, how fast is
Absolutely.
this storm moving right now?
Right now, north northeast at about 10 miles an hour, which I mean we've seen slower, but that certainly is not fast. And that is one of the reasons why we have such a risk for flash flooding is because we have these heavy rain rates moving relatively slowly and producing, 3 inch an hour rain rates for several hours. That is a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why we have that flash flood risk.
Well, Megan Borowski, she's interim director and chief meteorologist for the Florida Public Radio Emergency Network. Megan, thank you so much for the work you're doing for us today.
Absolutely.